So we hear all of this talk about being in the flow and how we need to achieve flow in order to be living our best life. So today we're going to talk about WTF does it even mean to be in the flow and how can we possibly achieve that as a busy parent? Tara, over to you. What are your thoughts?
Well, my first thoughts are, have you ever felt like people are all saying, get in the flow, and you're the odd one out that's like, get in the flow, get it like you're really trying and you have no idea how to get there, and like everybody else knows, and you don't want to ask because it just should be obvious, right? It should be obvious because obviously everybody else is like, yes, I just got in the flow. I got in alignment with myself. And you're like, how does that happen? So that's where I would start is in that space. What are
Yeah,
your
absolutely. And I think that one of the things you said, two things that I think are very important. Number one is there's a sort of a hint that it's supposed to be like work related, like you're
Mhm.
supposed to be doing something, and that's what in the flow means. And then you said, get in alignment. And
Mhm.
I don't think that everybody realizes that those things are the same. So tell
Mhm.
me more about what it means to get in alignment and how that relates to flow and how you support people doing that.
Yeah. So in alignment first starts with actually knowing yourself, which I think that there's a lot of people trying to get in alignment with an idea of
Mm,
what would be right instead of getting into alignment with yourself. And so for me, it starts with getting into the body, really getting into the body. And how I do it, we've done it before, is like doing the Muse method, breathing in and actually bringing touch and closing my eyes so I'm not so much in my head. Because what my mind thinks is usually somebody else's idea. And my same thing with all my clients is like somebody else's idea of what it would be in alignment for myself. So it's really being in that place first before I even have an idea. And personally, I think that is the slot, right? Like as soon as you slot into yourself, everything else starts to flow
mm.
and it doesn't become so trying and so difficult because you just come from the place of you instead of an idea of what you should be. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that you've nailed it right there. That's 100% it. Like I feel like most of the time what I do is what I feel like I have to do. Like you talked about somebody else's idea. I call that our mind BS, right? And we think that we have to do all of these things and it leaves us stressing with, "Oh my God, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this." But most of it, 90% of it is mind BS. We don't actually have to do those things. And we can sit in our power to flip that. And so I feel I need to do everything in frameworks. That's how my mind works. I feel there's three pieces to flow. And number one piece is just like you were talking about, getting connected to yourself, realizing, who you are and what you stand for. And number two is feeling like you're in charge of your decisions. Like you get to choose every moment of every day, not somebody else's definition, not your mind BS, not what you're told, but you actually get to choose. And the third one is that feeling of a sense of purpose, like you are moving towards something, like your actions matter. And so when we have all of those things, then we can start feeling like we are in the flow. And one of the things that I find most interesting is we always talk about work. We talk about like flow being something that we're doing. And if only I didn't have to do my work, and if only my kids weren't so demanding, then I could do something that matters to me and I could be in the flow. And it has nothing to do with work. It could be resting. It could be sitting there enjoying the sunshine. If you feel like you're connected to yourself in that moment, that moment of rest has purpose, and that you're in charge of the decision to sit there and fill your cup with that, fresh air and outside stuff, you can be in the flow in those moments. It's like a universal energy flow more than a outpouring of your genius into a task that feels fulfilling to you. Do you agree?
Mhm. I do. And I love some of the words that you used. So get to is, powerhouse words. I'm so much about languaging. And one of the ways that we can find whether we're actually in the flow and in alignment or not is to look at our own languaging. Like, so instead of saying it inside your head, say it out loud. If your languaging is should or have to, generally you're not in alignment with yourself. And some of this we have to adopt some new languaging. Does it feel like I get to?
Mm.
Right? Does this feel like I get to, or does this feel like I should or have to? And if it feels like I get to, and I'm still not choosing it, how do I give myself permission as a grown bleep adult to do, right? Like, why are we not looking for ourselves to give ourselves permission to do the things that would really put us in alignment, which would really fill our cups up again, replenish us so that we can go and still get to do the other things. I think some of the other things that we do in life feel like have tos and shoulds because we're so depleted.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
like that. And then the other word that you said is that we matter.
Mm.
And I truly believe that if we don't matter to ourselves, that we attract people who reflect that, that mirror that. And so until you are willing to take the step and say, I matter, I'm going to see what I get to do, what would replenish me, you're never going to find people who also want to pour into you, and you're not even going to let them. So I think those are some really powerful things that we get to do for ourselves, and powerful things that actually change the trajectory of our lives. So,
Yeah, I love that tool that you just said of the languaging. If you say it out loud and notice those things, that is a great way of, figuring it out and starting to allow yourself to choose a different path. And I think one of the other tools that, can help you start to make those decisions is redefining what success means to you.
mm,
And like you said, we have this outside definition of success. We have this mind BS definition of success. Oftentimes, our definition of success includes, things in our career, includes moving up the ladder. It includes being the best parent ever. It includes having it all together, or the appearance of having it all together. And if we can just do all of those things, then we are going to be successful. And that leads us to the, oh my goodness, I have to, I have to, I have to, I have to. But is that really our definition of success? Like, when we leave this world, how do we want people to remember us? Do we
mm,
care very much about our promotion or how clean our house was? Or do we care more about our connections and
mm,
about our long-term relationships with our spouse, with our kids, with ourselves? And so in that moment when we can start saying, you know what? A successful life means something completely different than what I was told to believe my whole life, then we can start using those I get to, right? It's when we define success as having balance and putting ourselves first and feeling happy, then all of a sudden, those things that we do to fill our cup is success, and
mhm,
not selfish and not taking away from the other things. And
mhm,
those moments where we are with our kids and we feel like everything is, maybe too much, we can redefine success and say, you know what? I get to, in this moment, make a choice. I choose
mhm,
how I show up. I choose how I show up for my kids and for myself. And I get to act that out. And I think a big part of that I get to is almost like cherishing or delighting in the action that you choose.
mhm,
So if I choose right now to take a break and just go outside and get some fresh air, I know that I have a little piece of mind BS in the back that's saying, okay, finish getting your fresh air. You got to go back in there. Your kids
mhm,
need you, blah, 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 blah. But if we can shut that off and just say, I am taking care of myself right now. This is part of my definition of success. I chose this action and I have the space to take these 5 seconds and do it and just delight in that. I think that makes a big, powerful shift. And it's probably linked a lot to the languaging that you're talking about. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I love what you were describing about making that choice. And what I like to say to people is, when you make a choice, be careful what you partner the choice with. So often we make a choice and then we partner it with guilt,
Oh,
right? Like we go take the breath, or we partner it with guilt with hurry, right? And so, or we take the nap, but we didn't actually get any rest because we just guilted ourselves out. But instead, take curiosity, like not even happiness, not even something where that we're like, oh my gosh, it's too hard to attain that. Like just curious of if I choose this, what will happen in that moment and then throughout the day, right? And then the other piece is I think that there's still a lot of people who struggle with redefining success because there's still a perfection in success. Like there's still a, well, okay, so if I'm not, a millionaire, if I'm not got the house, I still want to be this perfect parent.
Mm.
And it's redefining like if I take myself back and be a kid and did I really want a perfect parent or did I want a parent who was actually filling themselves up and then didn't guilt me out for when they were taking time out for themselves, who responded slower, right? Like who took a breath and said, let me come back to you because instead of biting my head off, or who showed me that it was okay to love on themselves, to prioritize themselves. So I didn't get into adulthood and think, oh my God, the last thing that I want is to be an adult because everybody around me shows me that that sucks, right? That actually showed me that it could be good. I think that we have to go back because sometimes when we put ourselves in the receiver mode, we don't expect everyone else to be perfect, but we would like them to have been a little softer, a little fuller, right? Like, God, it would have been nice to have a parent who wasn't always empty and reacting to me out of emptiness. That helps us to redefine in a really deep manner how we can show up as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful reflection about what success means and what our kids need, and what we need as a human and what we model, like want to model for them, what we
Mhm.
choose to model for them, right?
Mhm.
And it's so interesting that our conditioning and our old programming, because of what our parents modeled, I feel often that I was modeled sacrifice is love.
Mhm.
And those two things are synonymous. If I put all of my needs aside and tend only to you, then that shows that I love you.
Mhm.
But like you said, that turns into depletion. And is there another way that we can meet the needs of the people around us, show them for sure that we love them, but also meet our needs so that we can show up in a way that aligns with how we want to parent? We show up in a place where we're feeling fulfilled, where we have the patience, where we have the ability to make those cognitive choices about how I want to respond to this situation instead of showing up from a place of I'm empty, go away, I
Mhm.
can't handle
Mhm.
it, I can't handle you. It sends such a different message. And so I love that idea of going back to when you were a kid and what did you need? That's very, very powerful. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I also think in like we never really arrive, right? Like I think we have moments, and you and I have both talked about before, like there can be the default go back to programming, like it, and it's not necessarily always the outside programming, but it's just where we used to process from.
Mhm.
And I, in the moments where you maybe have been successful for a while, parenting and coming from this place of I get to and nurturing yourself, and then you find yourself in a state of emptiness and
Mm.
possible reactivity, it's in that moment to take a breath and go, oh, thank you to your body. You've let me know I'm empty. I'm not full of myself in the best possible way. And I need a moment, right? And instead of, so to me, that's kindness of self, that we are never going to arrive, that we're always going to do it right.
Mm.
But kindness to come back to, oh gosh, I need a moment because this is okay. Like it's okay to have a moment where I reacted and everything inside me is telling me that this isn't right. And it's also one of the things that I've given my kids permission is to really let me know when I'm not being myself.
Mm.
And it's wild that when you give them permission and you respond with thank you, they really do it kindly. So they might look bewildered, right? So there's been times where, especially my oldest son will say to me, "Hey, mom, like what's going on? You seem off, or you seem edgy, or you seem whatever." And somehow I've taught myself to always say thank you because I see it as a kindness,
Mhm.
both from my own body, but also from another person that they're saying, this isn't you. So whatever you got to do to get back to you, that's what I'm looking for,
Yeah.
So I personally think it really is helpful because if I'm just expecting myself, I can go too long in that space and not realize, and then it has a bigger effect even on myself, even if it's all alone, than I would like. So I love when people can reflect back to me, hey, what's going on? And then I always go back to this place of connection with myself. Like, let me just breathe in and connect to me, whatever that is. I don't have a definition because it's always changing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that because you're not only deepening your connection with yourself, you're deepening your connection with your kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're showing that trusting relationship. And it also feels like you are showing them that it's okay not to be perfect. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to get off track. We all get off track. And so I love the idea, like you were talking about, the languaging around the word success and, all of the programs and the mind BS that comes with that word. And I intentionally keep that word. I intentionally use that word because I feel that I just want to link something different to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important, like you're talking about when you've had a bad moment, our first thought is, I was unsuccessful,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you have the power to choose. You get to choose your next action.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are coming from this place of success, like even just going back, like you were talking about, to have your, going back as a child, do you want a parent that models perfection? Does that give you permission to be human? Heck no. You want a parent who models humanity. So, holy cow, I was successful. But what's my next decision? What's my next step? How do I want to show up in the next moment? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the big power of flow and the big power of that choice and the redefinition of success, because now you can say, oh my goodness, I have the opportunity. Now I get to show my kids humility. I can show my kids how to repair, broken situations. I can show my kids how to apologize. I can show them communication skills. And you get to show up in that powerful way that both models for your kids that no, everybody's human, nobody is perfect. Success does not mean perfection,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you get to show them how to mend that, how to take steps in the moment to continue your connections, even though we're not perfect, and continue to love each other through our imperfections.
Mm-hmm. And I think that that is a powerful thing to do in front of our children. Whether it, I'm sure we have a lot of women that are listening, but also for men, that you get to be emotional, you get to be vulnerable, you get to not know an answer. And in those things, you give another person power because you say, this is not just okay, but it's part of the journey, and there's power in embracing it. And I really believe that our children and our, we have 6 boys between the two of us, like that our boys need to learn that it's really okay from both moms and dads and, bonus parents and everything, that they get to be all those things and that there's power in it. I really believe there's massive healing when we can embody it for our kids.
Absolutely, because that they are going to feel those things and that gives them permission to be themselves. They don't
Mhm.
have to hide parts of themselves anymore. And that allows them to continue as their most authentic self with less and less programming. So, absolutely. So,
Yes.
let's go into our last thoughts, final thoughts about WTF does it mean to be in the flow and how can we possibly achieve that as a busy parent?
Gosh, like the last thought that you had about giving kids that choice, but you were making this point earlier that in that awareness, you always can take a next action.
Mm.
I think us embodying the flow also shows them that they don't have to stick in anything. So there's a lot of times where we're like, we stick in the muck, right? Like you're sad or depressed or you just don't know and you just stay there. But the next thing is like, okay, so I have permission to make a choice. What is the next action that I want to take? And by embodying all that authenticity, all of that, we show them that the next step comes from the space of belonging and that they don't have to stay in that rut. So, um, I guess my biggest thing is like, this is how we all function as a community by being your most authentic self. It really does serve. Because if you're a giver, you want to serve and give, and this is the greatest way that we give.
Oh, that's beautiful. And talking about languaging, flow by very definition is the opposite of stuck. It's the
Mm-hmm.
continual movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what flow means. And so I love that you ended with that and how it links to the languaging that is so critical to how you support people. And so my last thoughts of WTF is flow is it's to me those moments where you feel connected to yourself, connected to your purpose, and that redefined definition of success
Mm-hmm.
and how you can feel in charge of where you move next, where you move next. What decision are you going to make next? What action are you going to take next? Are you going to fill yourself? Is this a moment where you need to fill yourself? Is this a moment where your energy flows out into the love on the other people? It doesn't have to be just one thing. And it's continuously evolving and flowing. So it's not
Absolutely.
as hard as it seems to be. It's a moment to moment thing, and it's all about that authenticity and that connecting to yourself. All right, Tara. So how can people find you?
Well, the easiest way is on my website, so taramccullum.com. I mean, you can really look up Tara McCullum anywhere, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok these days. There's a little bit on TikTok, which is a little crazy, but how about you?
For me, you can find me on my website as well, mindbs.ca. And I have a new quiz on discovering your boundary style. And so that is super fun to see how you can set the most effective boundaries for the way you are and your particular style. So
Mm-hmm.
thanks for tuning in today, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Awesome.
Ready to uplevel your boundary game? Discover your personal boundary style at mindbs.ca/boundary style.